Ooh, a spicy question. I
Because
love
the
it.
writing is sort of everything, right? Like you kind of can fix plot holes, but if the writing isn't
So some
there,
readers love that, and some readers are like, but I wanted more of this. So it's kind of it's kind of a gamble.
Hello and welcome back to the Right and Wrong podcast. Joining us today is one of the booksellers' rising stars for 2024. It is literary agent Rachel Neely. Hello.
Hi, Jamie. Nice to speak to you.
Thank you so much for coming on. With agents, I'm always interested in starting with a bit about your origins in publishing. So first question is, was publishing always the industry that you wanted to work in?
No, not at all. I think I was kind of vaguely aware of it as an industry, but everyone I knew who was kind of dead set on publishing, they all read kind of very serious classics or kind of prize winning, like they always read through like the Booker list. And I was just sitting there with kind of like whatever the crime fiction was in Tesco that week. So I kind of felt like it wasn't really for me until shortly after university I came across an ad for an editorial assistant job in The Guardian, and it was for crime and thriller. And it was a kind of like, I guess like a big realization that actually whatever I wanted to read, I could go and I could specialize in that. And I didn't need to be able to rattle off kind of big, serious books. I could kind of read the books that I found entertaining. So that was kind of when I kind of first realized actually maybe this is something that would be a good route for me. Before that, I explored a lot of different things. Academia, I did an art degree. I did some SEO copywriting. What else did I do? I applied for a job at Innocent Smoothies. So I was a bit lost. And then I found this advert and I was like, oh, finally.
That's great. I think there definitely is like an association with that kind of very high literary people when they're younger being like, oh no, I'm going to work in publishing, and they probably think they want to be an editor as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think I kind of I felt quite different to everyone I knew who was like, oh yeah, I'm dead set on being kind of an editor at a publishing house. And it definitely wasn't something that was kind of, wasn't a great deal of information on publishing at my comprehensive school in Belfast. So it took me a while to find my way, but it's now been almost a decade, and I'm very happy doing what I do.
Yeah. And I mean, little do you know at that age that, and it's the same for the people that were reading literary stuff, but the little do you know that the supermarket crime fiction, that's some of the biggest commercial successes currently going around.
Yeah.
That's the great stuff. That's you've won.
It was a very
huge success.
Yeah, very happy accident. For sure.
So with that in mind, what was your first entry? How did you kind of find your way into publishing? What was your first job?
So I applied for that crime fiction job, and I think I was the runner-up. I was the second choice, which was obviously gutting at the time. But the two editors that I emailed with said they were like really impressed, and they could see I had a lot of kind of passion for the thing, for the subject. So they referred me to a colleague who was looking for an intern. So I spent my first 6 months in publishing doing an internship at Avon, which is part of HarperCollins. I then interviewed at HarperCollins for about 10 different editorial assistant jobs. And eventually I didn't get any of those, but there was one of the people I interviewed with there had a friend who was moving to a different publishing house and looking for an assistant. So my top tip for anyone wanting to get into publishing is do as many interviews as you can, because even if you don't get the job, a coffee with an editor can be a really fantastic way to find new opportunities.
Yes, and it's one of those industries where people are often moving between the bigger companies, and that often various people move in groups, or like whether that's an author moving with an editor or vice versa and things like that. It really, people do move a lot.
Yeah, so I moved at that point from HarperCollins to Hachette, and then I was at Hachette for 5.5 years, something like that.
Was that as an assistant editor?
So I was an editorial assistant first for about a year and a half, and then an assistant editor, and then I jumped to commissioning editor at a different division. That's what I was kind of most recently, before becoming
that was
an
Orion,
agent.
right?
That was Orion, yeah. So I worked in Tropes, which did a lot of kind of book clubby fiction, as well as some crime fiction. And then in 2022, I moved to Much Entertainment as an associate agent, which is kind of part assisting and part kind of starting to build your own list. And yeah, now it's been here ever since.
Okay, it's a pretty solid route in. A couple of questions on there.
Sure.
It's my understanding that all editors are to some capacity doing commissioning stuff. They are like looking for things to bring to the publisher. So what's the difference between an editor and a commissioning editor?
There's not a great deal. Usually a little salary bump, which never goes amiss. I think as a commissioning editor, you kind of stop assisting usually. So even as an editor, you're maybe providing support to a publisher or an editorial director. And then once you get to commissioning level, it's very much about your own list. So it's not really that dissimilar to kind of being a literary agent. It's very much about kind of shaping your own list and focusing on that.
Okay, right. Yeah. So it's basically the difference between an associate agent and a literary agent.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So what made you want to move? I've spoken to a few agents, and I know there's lots of agents that have made this move. What made you want to move from editorial into literary agency?
I think I always really enjoyed working with the authors. And I think that when you're at a publishing house, your kind of loyalty is split. You need to get kind of a really good deal for the company, first and foremost. But you also want to have like a good deal for your author. And often the two are kind of at odds with one another. What's good for an author is usually lots of money, which isn't great for the company. They want you to be paying it kind of as little as possible. Whereas as an agent, what's good for the author is good for me. If they get a big advance, then that's great for me. And I can kind of sleep easy knowing that everyone got a good deal, essentially.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And I guess, yeah, your obviously your priorities, because like you said, you're torn, but also in some ways, as an editor, obviously you do care about the author, but your job is to make the book as as good as the book can be. But as an agent, you're more focused on the author than the book. Does that kind of track?
I think it's both. What I found kind of surprising and wonderful about agenting is I actually spend a lot more time editing than I did as an editor, which is almost more of a kind of project management role. With the editing often getting kind of shoved towards the weekends, whereas I do kind of an edit at least once every other week as an agent. So we do a lot of kind of focus on the book. We're a very editorial agency, I'd say, in general. So we do structural edits with our clients, we do line edits with our clients, and make sure that whenever a manuscript goes out, it's in kind of the best possible shape it can be. But then, as you say, we're also thinking about an author's career long term and kind of how they build on that first book.
Right.
In a way that if you're a publishing house and a book doesn't work out, you can drop it. You can drop an author from the list. Whereas as an agent, you have to kind of be able to pivot and think, right, how do we find a new home for the author?
And I mean, you spend a lot of time going through carefully picking the people who are on your list, and like you've invested your time in them for a reason. So like, that if one book doesn't find a home, whether it's that same book or it's a new book, you believe you've signed with that author because you believe in them and that you believe that you will find a home for them eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's always heartening to hear of kind of some of Juliet's clients are massive Sunday Times bestsellers, and it was maybe the third book that went down submission before they found a home. So I think it's very much, it's not kind of if we don't sell, then it's done. We're always looking for kind of how to move forward, whether, like you say, that's the first book to sell or when we come up to recontract. And yeah, we also, like you say, we believe in the people we sign. We pick them very carefully out of hundreds of submissions that come in every week. And yeah, sometimes a book doesn't land for whatever reason, but we do trust our authors kind of eventually to find the home. And often it's they maybe switch genres or the market moves, and that's kind of what makes the difference.
Yeah.
And I think it's often kind of what's for you won't go by you.
Mm-hmm. So when you joined Mushins Entertainment as Juliet's assistant, or was it you? No, it was associate agent.
Yeah.
So you kind of skipped the assistant part of that usual track, presumably because you had all the industry experience.
Exactly, yeah, because I was coming in with kind of 6 years experience. It meant I was able to skip ahead, though I have to say I was very ably assisted by some amazing assistants at the agency, because there was an awful lot to learn, and definitely it kind of gives you a different viewpoint, which I think is useful, but it does mean there's a lot of the kind of very basic stuff that you're playing catch up with.
Sure. Had you, as an editor, as a commissioning editor, had you worked with Juliet on any authors?
I'd met her before. We didn't share any authors. Though shortly before I left, she sent out a book that I was like, I would definitely be signing that if I wasn't leaving. It was just bad timing. But I mean, I'd always really admired her list, and I think editors are always really excited when they see her name pop up in the inbox.
Mm-hmm. As someone who, I guess, as someone who has been on both sides of this, is there, as an editor, do you kind of have, obviously you're open to anything, and you'll be open to any agent that comes to you, but do you have like a kind of list of agents where you're like, I know that I've signed, we've signed some really great books from authors from that agent, and then you kind of have like, there's a sort of goodwill built into that, so you're like, oh, so and so sent me a book, this could be really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that as you get more and more submissions as a commissioning editor, you get a sense of kind of who shares your taste.
Right,
So absolutely, like if somebody kind of sends something, you think like that was my favorite submission this year, of course you'll be excited to kind of receive whatever they send out next. And I think often when I'm thinking about my subs list for my authors, there are lots of authors that I have existing clients with, and I think actually this would be really great for them. Once you have that relationship, I think on both sides of the table, you get to know one another's taste, and that can make kind of receiving a submission or sending it out kind of really exciting.
Yeah. There's so much like organic growth of networks, which you can't like force yourself into, because so much of it's subjective as well. Like you're saying, the editors that you will align with the most as an agent, or the agents as an editor, is it's usually going to be it's the ones that have similar subjective taste to you. So it's not like you can just network with everyone and you're going to have everyone on your list. It's not going to be like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. But then I think it's always lovely to kind of go to a publishing house and sit down with people and discover a new editor who you have a lot in common with. That's always really exciting. And we always send out submissions widely, like you're sending to maybe about 20 people each book. So there's plenty of room for everyone on the list. And sometimes it can be a really nice surprise to connect with someone that, it's the first book that you're working on together.
Yeah, okay. So as an agent, you're sending your average like to 20 different editors as like a kind of...
Yeah, somewhere between kind of 20 and 25 usually.
As an editor, how many submissions do you think you would receive sort of weekly or monthly, whatever's easier to track?
Yeah, I mean, as an editor, I think when I was a commissioning editor, I was the only person commissioning on my imprint for a little while. So I was probably getting about 20 submissions a week. And I think that's pretty standard for editors now. As an agent, we get about 200 a week. From kind of prospective authors. But I think the difficulty of being an editor, of course, is that every book you receive has already kind of been through the initial round with agents. So there's obviously going to be a reason why that agent signed it. The writing is probably of a good quality. The plot is probably appealing. It probably makes sense for the market. So I think a lot of the ways that we as agents kind of sift through our submissions, all of those things are kind of out as ways to kind of sift through your reading pile as an editor, because there's at least a level of quality. So yeah, I have to say I much prefer being on this side of the table where the ones that I really want to work on, they kind of immediately jump out of the inbox, I think.
Okay, yeah, great. Yeah, because as an editor, like, you have, like everyone at Mushins, you said, very editorial. You guys, you used to be an editor. This is like professional level editorial that has gone into these. The agents know the market. They know it's going to be commercially viable. So everything an editor is getting could become a book. And like,
absolutely.
I guess you have to find reasons not to sign it.
Exactly. And I think we're very careful to not to give an editor an excuse. But yeah, it's I think, I have a lot of sympathy for editors. It's scary kind of thinking, like, what if you read the wrong one and you miss out on something and your boss is going, why didn't we see this? Why didn't we offer on this? So yeah, it's a lot of your spare time as an editor goes into reading. So yeah, I have a lot of respect for editors.
Yeah. I guess do you get that feeling as an agent as well?
Yeah, I mean, we read a lot, but I do think that, particularly as someone who's relatively new to agenting, my list isn't full yet. So that gives me quite a lot of time for reading and for editing during office hours, which I think is a luxury that I definitely didn't have as an editor.
Okay.
But I also think it's kind of a good litmus test. Like, if I'm reading something, one of my initial questions is, would I be happy to keep reading this at the weekend? Because that's what it's going to be for an editor. And they're going to have to want to give up their time, whether it's on their commute or on a Sunday or in the evenings. They have to kind of feel compelled enough to spend time kind of extra work.
Yeah. Whereas for you, it's like, if I'm not driven enough to, I've started this, if I'm not driven enough to read it, maybe that's the sign in of itself that
absolutely
this isn't for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's like anyone who picks up a book that they love, you kind of get wrapped up in it and the pages fly by and suddenly you're at the end and you've kind of drunk it in one sitting or two sittings, and that's kind of the feeling you're looking for.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So that brings us on to your list. As a literary agent, what are the genres, what are the age ranges that you represent?
So I only do adult, just because that's the market I know. It's the market I've worked in for almost a decade. Whereas children's and YA, I'm just not the right agent for that. I don't have the kind of market knowledge that would set me up well for that. In terms of genre, I'm fairly agnostic. So I do fantasy, I do dystopian, I do dark academia, horror, book club fiction, crime and thriller. I'd say what kind of unites my taste rather than genre is that I generally prefer darker stories. So like the little kind of soundbite on my agency page is that my favorite books center characters with tragic fates, dark pasts, or buried trauma. And that gets quoted back to me an awful lot just before a really depressing query letter.
Right.
But yeah, I think generally speaking, I prefer like kind of tragedy over comedy, dark over light.
Okay. Yeah, I think the market to some degree also prefers that.
Yeah, I mean, it can be challenging when, particularly at the minute, like romance is having such a big moment. But
yeah,
I love like a rom-com as a film or a TV series, but it's just not what I naturally gravitate towards when I'm reading.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, so pretty eclectic. It might be easier then to ask, are there any genres that you absolutely do not represent?
So women's fiction and rom-coms aren't quite right for me. I also not a big fan of kind of dark romance or romantic suspense. I just think sometimes it can be quite icky. And then obviously YA children's, not looking for that. And then I have an amazing kind of cozy crime author on my list, but it feels like that's kind of enough for now. So I'm not actively seeking any cozy crime either.
Okay. But it sounds a bit like, but never say never. Sometimes you see something you didn't know you wanted.
Exactly. Sometimes something comes in and it's incredible. Or sometimes, you didn't know you were looking for it until it lands. Though I think across the agency, we between us, we cover most things. And often if something isn't for me, it's actually a perfect book for Juliet or for Maria, who's joined us recently from Inkwell in New York. So I think across the team, we kind of cover a little bit of everything.
Yeah. And you do non-fiction as well?
I personally don't. I'm fiction only, but
Right.
Maria, that I just mentioned, who everyone can find on the website, is doing some non-fiction as well.
Okay.
I
So
did
just fiction.
I did one non-fiction book as an editor, and the legal read scared me out of doing it ever again. I was like, this is much easier if we can just make stuff up. No one ever has a problem with that.
Okay.
So yeah.
Would you, sometimes I have an agent on and, you know, they'll say, I represent this and this, and I'll be like, okay, well, do you represent, you know, like epic? They're like, I represent fantasy. And I'm like, do you represent epic fantasy? And they're like, not really epic fantasy, but other fantasies. But then they'll say, if the caveat is that they're like, I do have one book that's in this genre that I don't represent, or I am willing to represent that if one of my authors comes to me and says, oh, I'm thinking about doing this.
Yeah, I think that's like a very different situation, because I think you already know you love that writing. And also if the author's coming to you and saying like, I'm thinking about writing this, you have a whole year to kind of make sure you're well informed and can kind of equipped with all the right comps and know the market and know the editors. So you're doing a really good job.
Right.
So I have like a couple of historical writers who want to move into fantasy, which is something I represent. So that's quite convenient.
Yeah.
But it's also really exciting because I know that I love their historical work, and I think historical and fantasy share a lot of DNA.
Yes, absolutely.
Because there's all of that world building. So I'm really excited for those two books. I'm really excited for. Okay.
But and I guess you have Juliet and Maria kind of either side of you. If one of your authors was like, oh, I wanted to do some nonfiction, you have Maria as a resource to be like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
But no, I haven't been tempted yet, so
not yet.
We'll see.
But never say never.
Well, yeah.
But you're not looking for it. If anyone listening is, don't submit that to Rachel. That's not what she's actively looking for.
Yeah, I'm not actively looking for it. So yeah, probably not the best port of call.
So before we get on to stranding you somewhere with a book, on a more last question then, more specifically then, is there any specific subgenre or setting or character that you are particularly on the lookout for that you'd love to see pop up in your submissions?
Well, I'd say I very much kind of cut my teeth on crime and thriller, and I'd love to have more of that for my list. We do get quite a few submissions in the crime and thriller space, but I think it can be really hard to find something that feels kind of fresh and new. So yeah, I think please send me all your crime and thriller. I'd love to have a few more authors kind of in that space, and it can be commercial or literary. I'm kind of open to both in that crime and thriller space.
Okay, great. So then that brings us on to the new location. This will be, I think, the third or fourth episode that we're no longer kidnapping you and dumping you on a desert island. Now the question is, Rachel, if you were snowed in at a cozy woodland cabin in the middle of nowhere, what book would you hope to have with you?
Do you know what the cozy cabin makes me think of? Have you read The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley? A group of university students go to a cabin in the wilderness, get snowed in, and start getting bumped off. So that's probably not the right choice. I think my favorite books, I kind of think they're the ones that I read kind of a really long time ago. It's such a cliched answer, but The Time Traveler's Wife will forever be kind of up there as one of my favorite books. And I read The Girls shortly after I came into publishing by Emma Cline, and I really loved that too. And I think they're both they're not the happiest books, but I think like a kind of cozy cabin with like a fire going on, that would be all right. Everything around me would be cozy enough. Whereas if I was on the desert island, it would be a bit bleak, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's a different vibe. It's a different tone.
Yeah.
And those are kind of bittersweet stories. You know, yeah. I think that suits the locale well. If you had to pick one, which would it be?
Probably The Time Traveler's Wife.
Okay. Yeah.
I just think it's such a kind of singular book. And I read it when I was maybe like 15 or 16, and I think I've read it like 3 or 4 times since.
Oh, okay,
it's one
great.
I can
So
kind of always go back to. Yeah, it's like comfort food, right? Yeah, definitely.
Okay, great. It is a classic. So it's a great choice to take to the cabin with you. Next up, we are going to go a bit deeper into submissions and cover letters, the do's and don'ts, and that will be available in the extended episode, which you can find at patreon.com/right and wrong.
So I come in every day with like chapters and chapters of these stories with wild plot twists to incorporate all of these different words that we were learning to spell. But that is as far as my writing ambition ever went.
Okay. Well, good to know. I've had that answer a few times. Just straight up, nope, never.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much, Rachel, for coming on, telling us all about your... It's been such a pleasure. Yeah, your publishing career. It's been so cool chatting and hearing all about how you approach queries and the kind of the nitty gritty of all of that. Yeah, it's been great. Thank you so much.
It's been great. Thank you so much.
And for anyone wanting to keep up with what Rachel is doing, you can find her on Instagram at Rachel Neely Agent. And if you're thinking about submitting, head over to mushens-entertainment.com/Rachel-Neely for all the details on that and the other agents at Mushens Entertainment. To support this podcast, like, follow, and subscribe. Join the Patreon for ad-free extended episodes and check out my other podcasts, The Chosen Ones and Other Tropes. Thanks again to Rachel, and thanks to everyone listening. We will catch you on the next episode. Shout out time. One of my amazing patrons, Lee Foxton, is querying their debut novel. It's a family drama, commercial fiction along the lines of Jojo Moyes and David Nichols. Fingers crossed, I am rooting for you. Good luck.